Awesome.
It's too late now.
Yeah, we're live kind of now. All right, it's 9:01, so we've got 1 minute and 35 seconds. Just a heads up. Hello, everybody out there that's not listening yet. Thank you for not listening to us right now. Okay.
It's amazing. We've got so many people watching the show this morning.
I feel so special.
You should. It's awesome.
Already.
It says I'm live. Hi, everybody. Bryan and the Beard are back.
Oh, gosh.
Honestly, that's did we decide on Bryan and the Beard? Is that like Pinky and the Brain?
Well, kind of. The beard has its own persona. I can't help it. That's funny. All right, so I need to get onto Aaron's page because, see, that's the bad part about streaming on Facebook is because it streams on my Facebook and on his Facebook, and it's two different streams as far as like when people are talking. If they're on to mine, it doesn't link up to his stream. So
mine doesn't either. Crazy. If they're on my page, it's just on my page. Greetings from Ethiopia. Oh, good morning, Timotheus. I can't even say that. I can't answer that either.
All right, everybody be quiet. There we go. Welcome to the breakdown, everybody. This is Aaron Barker broadcasting from an undisclosed location deep behind enemy lines, asking the questions that get you kicked out of Bible study and sent to therapy. Thank you all so very much for the opportunity to be in your vehicle, office, residence, warehouse, farmhouse, hen-house, outhouse, or doghouse, wherever it is you may be listening to the program today. A lot of stuff that we're going to talk to you about today. Everything from Damar, Hamilin being awoke. McCarthyism is back. Also hitting the bad theology a little bit later and other information that we think is extremely important for you all to know. Always joining me on this wonderful morning, we have Erica. Good morning. All right. Good morning, Bryan. How are you doing, sir?
I am fantastic, brother. Loving this awesome January weather.
It is a little nippy outside today. I'm digging the nippiness of the outside cold air. Not like it was a couple weeks ago, but still, I'm not going to complain about the weather. I'm one of those guys that just kind of goes with it. If it's winter, it's winter. If it's the fall, it's the fall. I'm like whatever mood I'm in for weather is what we're in at that time. But there's also times, of course, during summer, I'm like it's way too hot, and I'm not digging it. But anyway, let's jump into all the stuff we have today. Going to dig right here into the chum bucket. The very first thing we're going to talk about, if those who have been living potentially in a hole for the past several days, Damar Hamilin is awake. He reportedly had a meeting with his team yesterday and was able to communicate to them that he loved them, which was pretty awesome. I mean, for those of you who may not watch any kind of football or anything like that, I don't know if this is going to be insensitive for those, but here's what happened. This happened Monday night between the Bengals and the Bills. This was actually a pretty big game towards the end of the season here, heading into the postseason. And this was going to determine a lot of rankings and such, but it all came to a screeching halt when there was like 5 minutes left in the first quarter, and T. Higgins had called a pass and was headed for first down. And this is what happened if you're able to watch the video. There was a hit by Damar, and he took it to the chest from T. Higgins, which is a standard run-of-the-mill play. Bam, just hit him right there in the chest. I mean, it happens all the time.
Not what any of us want to see in there.
So Hamilin was able to make the tackle. He stood up. When he stood up, he kind of hesitated for a moment and then just leaned back and passed out. And when he passed out, he hit He hit the field. People, of course, thinking that this is a concussion because that's what everybody thinks when something happens in football. It's a concussion, because football is so absolutely dangerous to people. But they were thinking that it was a concussion or something happened. Then everybody knew it went terribly awry. When the ambulance, they went to break, they come back, the ambulance is on the field, and then there's CPR being administered, et cetera. There's a lot of stuff that was going on out there. Players are extremely upset and bothered by that. Turns out he went into cardiac arrest, went to the hospital, but now throughout the week, he's been able to make amazing progress and was awake yesterday again to communicate with his team. So that's awesome because so many people were following this. They were like, there's no way the game can continue. And honestly, I don't see how they could continue on that and how they could continue to go on with the game after seeing their friend, their brother in a way out there on the field and then having to have that kind of lifestyle. I couldn't imagine being in that situation, watching somebody, pass out, go into cardiac arrest, have to have an AED machine, CPR, being rushed to the hospital, and then like, oh yeah, go back to work, go do exactly what you were doing right before all this happened. I don't think I would be able to handle that emotionally or mentally. It's just way too rough. So, but anyway, very, very happy that he was able to wake up, very happy that he was able to communicate, and it seems like he's going to be making a pretty remarkable recovery. So continued prayers for them over there and for those that are a part of his family. His family released, of course, that they're very appreciative of everybody at UC Medical Center, the Bengals, the Bills, all the teams that have showed up, all that. Interestingly, though, there's federal agents that have been stationed around UC Medical Hospital since all this happened. I guess they were anticipating some type of riot or some type of activity that would be happening if he didn't wake up or something. I don't know what it was. I mean, pretty crazy.
Well, I tell you what, I'm not much of a football fan, but I did watch that game. I kind of like to watch near the end of the season when playoffs and everything start happening, and it was kind of wild because it didn't look to me like the hit was that hard, and I kind of thought this was one of those things where you've seen it in soccer where the guy kicks and misses the ball, and all of a sudden two teammates fall down because they're like faking injuries. I wasn't sure what to think of this. And then by the time, like you said, they come back from break and they had the ambulance on the field, it was pretty serious. The thing I thought was so cool about that, Aaron, was if you noticed, I think that the hosts knew more than what they were telling anybody because of their reaction and the way that they were talking to the crowd, the way that they were just the seriousness of how the somberness of what they were saying and how they were saying it. And I love the fact that
I don't know that
they were. Go ahead.
I don't know that they were privy to any kind of like keep your mouth shut or that kind of information. But there had to be somebody mic'd. They had to be being fed information. They knew how long the CPR was going on.
Oh, I'm sure.
They knew it was 7 minutes. They knew yeah. I mean, they had to have been getting information on exactly what was going on the field, which how can you not have that look on your face?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was amazing. I mean,
I think that you would have to.
Well, there's a lot of memes and stuff going around that are, I think, a little bit tasteless, but one of them said, isn't it amazing now that the NFL is asking people to pray? And, it's like, oh, wow, okay. Yeah, I don't know if I want to go there or not, but yeah.
I don't.
What are the memes
I don't
saying?
find faceless. I sent to. He said, "Isn't it ironic that now that the NFL is asking people to pray?" And I posted something just like that to you guys. I said, and just like that, the NFL's okay with people kneeling on the field in prayer. That was weird.
They made the big.
Right?
They made the big stink over.
I know it seems
praise.
tasteless, but
I don't. Well, I don't think it's tasteless. I think it just talks to the situation we're in, where is if prayer or if your Christian ethics make a statement that people don't like, then they're not happy with it.
The only part that's tasteless is that it was right in the heat of it, and really that isn't the focus at that point. Like, wait, give it a minute. But still,
Well, a
it
couple of
was
things.
like so
This
glaring.
Yeah, this happens all the time, and people are, like one of my first concerns was this guy vaxxed, because there have been hundreds. All right. Hundreds and hundreds of young people that have passed out on football fields, on soccer fields, on basketball courts. There was actually a report yesterday of a young lady who was 18 years old I think it was the Bahamas. She was playing basketball, no history of medical issues, no history of heart issues or problems or anything like that. And then, pow, she just passes out and dies. People tried to administer CPR by the time that the got there. Since the vaccines themselves were administered, it's been over 1,100 people. Athletes have had. I think it's almost 1,600 that had adverse reactions, serious medical events. Over 1,100 of those have died have died because of that. That was actually in a report that Peter McCullough shared.
The posts in response to that, to what you were talking about that night, were insane. People were visceral about that.
They were visceral, and the thing is, Aaron, it's amazing that we have been called tin hat conspiracy system, and people are like, well, you're just all the conspiracy theory. I had two pastors tell me, well, you're one of those conspiracy theory guys. I'm like, it's not a conspiracy if you can prove it. I mean, if you've got the evidence, if you see the evidence, and it's obviously there's a reason for it. I mean, you guys remember when I was in the hospital, I told you I had 17 different doctors ask me, "Did you get the vaccine?" No, thank God. Okay, that's something that you can't talk. I mean, everybody's surprised when I say that, and I don't know why.
Well, the conversation, of course, it starts, and people are automatic. I had folks reach out to me, and they were like, that was in poor taste. You should delete it. People that were on the post, because I posted this up on Facebook asking, was he vaxxed? And the people were on the post from somebody who was there. You should delete this post. Like, why you were there? Big Wolf, you were there.
We were all there. We were all there.
If
you saw it, we were all there.
Yeah.
Just because I didn't pay for the seat license and actually travel to Cincinnati doesn't mean I didn't see what you saw.
Doesn't mean I can't ask questions.
I probably had a better view than you did, and you're sitting in the seat, so whatever.
I mean, yeah, you were there, but that doesn't give you any kind of special authority over me not being there. But this, and also you asked those questions about this, but shortly after, you're considered insensitive. But shortly after this, on The View, they were talking about with Joy Behar and Sonny Jostin and all their Boston, whatever it is. I had the Twitter, the tweet here. I was trying to find the video of them talking about how appropriate it is to play tackle football. And I'm like, well, wait a second. How is it okay to have that conversation a day or two after and to not have the conversation about the vaccine? Because this is honestly, I getting into this early in the show, but since this has come out, hopefully this is going to be one of those conversations that we can continue to have because the conversation around vaccinations and what they're doing to people, how they're causing blood clots, how they're causing that plasticized blood or that plasticized tendon thing, the strings that they're finding within somebody when they do the autopsies, etc. If you look at this, because people think you're crazy, they're like, oh, the vaccine didn't do this. What happened was the one in however many chance that he got hit at the exact right time, right between his heartbeats, that caused him to go into cardiac arrest. Okay, well, you're going to believe the statistical probability that would happen. Yeah, it is. I'm not saying it's not possible. What I'm saying is that you would believe that statistical possibility, that it is possible for, in the off chance that could happen, or in the potential that it could happen. And then for this, you won't even consider a statistical possibility on this at all. But however, what happened was just the other day, the CDC finally released its VAERS safety monitoring analysis for COVID vaccines via a FOIA request. It took multiple FOIA requests and multiple contacts to the CDC for them to finally get this information released to them. Right. And what we see here, I'm going to put this chart up on the screen for those people that are watching over on, are we on YouTube today?
We are on YouTube. I was just getting ready to tell you guys, it looks like Linda hit us up on YouTube. So maybe we're not in YouTube jail anymore, Aaron.
Well, enjoy it for today. because after we talk about this topic,
we're going to get kicked off again, aren't we?
but here is, people are like, oh, it's not the vaccine. You can't say it's a vaccine. Here at the CDC releasing its VAERS safety monitoring right here, safety signals from CDC's analysis of VAERS reports for mRNA COVID vaccines or mRNA COVID gene therapy, cardiovascular issues. Look at the red line, up over 70,000. Neurological issues, pulmonary issues, thromboembolic issues, menstrual issues, death. Look at all of that.
Yep.
You can't look at those statistics now and then say we're crazy, or that say that somebody can't question the vaccine when even the CDC has reported here the safety of these and the efficacy of these vaccines is brought into question.
You can say that you don't believe this, just like I can say that I don't, right? Like, I don't believe that it's a vaccine, right? I can be on my side of this and you can be on your side. But at this point, if you're looking at that and going, yeah, I'm sure it's going to be okay. I don't know.
Now, wait a minute.
I don't know how you do that.
Didn't Hamilin have a heart attack? Isn't that what they said? It was a
cardiac arrest. Yeah.
Cardiac arrest. Okay. 70,000 cases on that. Why wouldn't I put that with, I mean, he's 24 years old, 25 years old, something like that. He's in the top, the peak of health. He's playing a sport professionally and he falls. I mean, I'm over 300 pounds, 47 years old with all kinds of issues. I should be the one to have a heart attack, not him. No, I'm serious.
Well, and they're constantly monitored for their health, and they're constantly monitored for their heart and for their safety there. And
that's the part that I question. I mean, these are people that are, the reason we're talking about it happening to these athletes is because these are people that are supposed to be in mint physical condition, that are monitored, are monitored constantly, right? I mean, his last vax was on December 16th.
Yep.
Break loose a clot. Anyone? But that's just conjecture. You're never going to know that. You're never going to know.
The first thing I thought of is when he took that hit to the chest, that he broke loose a clot.
Yeah.
And if you guys have been watching the show for long, in October, I had several blood clots break loose from my leg. And trust me, I know what that feels like. And it sucks.
Well, and all of this, because people are like, and they still say this, and we have to take into this consideration the chance that he, of course, is not vaccinated, and the chance that it could have been exactly what he's talking about, or exactly what they're mentioning. But what I would like to bring to the table for this conversation and to advance this is there's no reason for us to not consider the adverse effects of vaccines on people without you trying to put your agenda in there, right? You can't say that it's not the vaccines, because if you're going to trust the science, you have to look at all of the possible factors of this. If you're going to do an investigation, you don't kick out one piece of information and say, well, that's not possible. No, we're not even going to consider that. That's a conspiracy theory. You have to think about that, because this is being introduced, and with the facts and evidence that are coming out just this week, being reported over on the Epic Times, being reported through the Children's Health Defense Fund, being reported here on these websites about the VAERS safety, etc. These are factors that have to be considered.
Here's the thing too, right? We're not coming at it from this point of view simply because we are some sort of crazy anti-vax person. We're saying, look at all these athletes. How can you not ask this question? We're not just saying, right? I mean, we're saying, hey, you have all this empirical evidence. Are we just gonna?
And Aaron, I want to address something.
The light's red.
You were talking about there's a chance that he wasn't vaxxed. He's in the NFL. If he's playing,
they have no choice.
Well, there are stories. Now, again, I'm saying I'm doing this so that everybody can think about this. There were reports last year that the Bills had one of the lowest vaccine percentages of all the NFL teams, and they are trying to get them to increase their vaccine numbers on their team. So that's something actually that has the possibility of being into play there.
Yeah, but let's talk about the mandate. Do you know what I mean? So the NFL had a mandate right? Most hospitals had a mandate. The federal government had mandates. How many people do you know that are not Damar Hamlin, that are not some kind of, celebrity, that kowtowed to this or had to do this for the very sake of their income? All right. And now they're faced with the repercussions that you're never going to hear about because they're not Damar Hamlin. They're not playing football on the NFL on Monday nights.
Here's the other thing, too, for their own mental. You have to fight against the fact that there's something, these facts. You have to fight against. Otherwise, you're going to be insane. Yeah. How would you sleep at night?
Right.
If you had it,
Yep.
if you had to take
Well,
it, and then
I had this conversation with some guys.
like you're never going to.
Yeah, that is part of the consideration, and you all can also weigh in on this conversation. If you head on over to breakdradio.com, click on the microphone in the bottom right-hand corner. You can leave your sound off. We'll make you famous. We'll play that here on the program, and it could be about this topic or any other topic you want to discuss. And this is a continuing conversation because we have to advance the fact that there are too many people that are having adverse effects, and then even the CDC itself reporting the safety signal and analysis that are showing from December 2020 to July 2022 that the COVID vaccine shows clear safety signals for death and a range of highly concerning thromboembolic, cardiac, neurological, hemorrhagic, hematological, immune system, and menstrual adverse events among U.S. adults. There's no reason why this should not also be considered in there, and that is not why it shouldn't be part of the conversation as well. Have you all ever heard of this whole pay it forward stuff, like the pay it forward lines that they do at these restaurants and things?
Yes.
So what I gather,
Yeah.
that when you go through a restaurant drive-through, evidently it's like you pay for your food and then they tell you the cost of the person behind you, and now you're supposed to pay for them as well. You say quoting fingers supposed to. What happened though was this guy gets through to a line, and he is actually over at let me see where he is here. He's at Bojangles is where he is. He gets up to the line, and the customer, he's told by the associate there that the customer behind him, that their cost for their food was $45. So this guy's like,
Yeah.
no,
No.
I'm not gonna be paying $45
I don't think
for that.
so.
He said he didn't sign up to feed the 5,000, which which is pretty funny. But here he is right there. Now, I don't get these pay it forward lines. I guess it's obviously an optional thing that you have here, whether or not you're going to pay for the people behind you. But I would feel rather awkward if I'm sitting in line. Do you want to pay for the person behind you? And it's 3 or 4 times the size, or 3 or 4 times the amount that I'm paying for my own food, or and what if somebody in front of you didn't pay?
My answer is no.
So
I'm
if
not
they ask you
doing
to
it,
round
and the
up,
person
say
behind
$50.
you, no.
Go
And here's the other thing. Doesn't know that I didn't pay it forward, and the person behind me doesn't know that I was supposed to. So the only person who knows is the person I'm paying, and I don't really care what they think. It's their job to just get what my order is, and I'll see you later. Yeah, that's.
And I'm thinking about those pay it forward lines. The person that's really going to benefit is the last person of the day that goes through, if the person in front of them actually pay. Like they're going to get their meal paid for. But then the first person that actually starts the pay it forward line, they're the ones that are going to get screwed over because they got to pay for theirs and they got to pay for the people behind them. I'm sure the restaurant's not going to kick in their pay it forward. Like all the customers, you all pay it forward. Well, what about the restaurant picking out somebody and be like, you know what? I'm going to pay it forward to this person, because they would probably do that. Like, hey, you ordered a $1 drink, so I'm going to go ahead and pay it forward. There you go. Go on home.
Yeah, and
they're not going to get like one of these
shaming. Like you don't shame people into charity.
Right.
Yeah, and the thing about the whole charity that bothers me is I'm fine if somebody wants to do that on their own, but the expectation that you have to do it, like you're going to be looked at by the drive-through attendant. She's like, the car behind you is $45.70. No, I'm not going to pay that. Whatever. You're so rude. Not you.
Well, she's going to get a couple.
Easy, Erica. Easy. Wow.
Not you.
Apparently, I'm not the only one spun up this morning.
Oh, man. Anyway, you can watch with us over at on YouTube. You can also check us out over on Facebook as well. We're on YouTube again for now. We don't know what's going to happen after today's broadcast, but if we stay on our best behavior, well, we can't have any fun if we do that. But what's funny about this pay it forward stuff is that there are restaurant workers that actually weighed in about this, and they say that the people who work at the window are annoyed at this because of this. It says that paying forward, an ancient concept, being found everywhere from Greek plays, blah blah blah. It's also ironic, by the way, when it's called paying it forward, but you're actually paying for the person behind you. So it would be kind of like pay it behind, right? Pay it backwards. That's the way. I'm splitting hairs here
a little bit, but that's okay.
But evidently mixed. Drive-through workers have mixed feelings about it. Most of the time you're alone in a drive-through, taking the order and inputting the order while simultaneously greeting the car at the window. It's a very tough job to take the order and greet the customer at the drive-through window. You have no idea how difficult it is. All right, folks, that's it for that. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're actually going to be talking to Clay Hall from Abolished Abortion, Kentucky. We're going to have a great discussion with him. Stay with us as we do that. Don't forget to sound off as well, and we will be right back in a minute.
Asking the questions that get you kicked out of Bible studies and sent to therapy.
You're listening to The Breakdown.
Hi, it's Doc Thompson for Matthew 25 Ministries. Matthew 25 Ministries is one of the few charities I'll actually endorse because I know them. I've worked with them, and I know almost all of the money that you donate goes to help people. Go to m25m.org, m25m.org.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395.
Why have thousands of aspiring authors teamed up with Christian Faith Publishing to publish their book? Because Christian Faith Publishing is an author-friendly publisher who understands that your labor is more than just a book. We provide authors freedom and flexibility throughout the publishing process, professional book editing, award-winning design, and some of the highest royalty structures in the publishing industry. And as always, you will retain 100% of the rights to your book.
I was looking to find a company that I could trust, one that assisted in the editing process completely.
The most important qualities that I was looking for was a publisher who was honest and upfront, no hidden costs or fees, and owning the rights to my own work.
Christian Faith Publishing will publish, market, and sell your books in all major bookstores, online booksellers, as well as specialty Christian bookstores. Call for your free author submission kit.
800-978-4812, 800-978-4812, 800-978-4812. That's 800-978-4812.
Oh, hi. Didn't see you there. I was busy eating this delicious meal from preparewithmojo50.com. You look hungry. Do you want some? Of course you do. Get your own. You can go to preparewithmojo50.com. That's preparewithmojo50.com. You can't have mine.
Welcome back to the Breakdown. Folks, thank you so much for staying with us. I know, Erica, we're going to talk about one of your absolute favorite topics that you love discussing, and that is Mr. Matthew Perry. He is in the news. Of course, he wrote a book about his time with friends, and during his time there, he would obviously those folks made a bank. They made some major coin doing Friends. Still, considered a great show. I don't want to mention that in the same sentence as MASH, lest I catch the ire of Bryan and his boomeriness.
My boomeriness. Oh, that's a new word. I like that.
Yeah, his boomeriness. So what I found interesting, though, of course, is Matthew Perry is now making this kind of pity me type of of tour. He's going around to all these different doing interviews, etc., because of this book that he read. I understand you do a book, you go do your book tour, do all your interviews, etc. But it seems like there's an awful lot of pity me, whiny. I need everybody to, make me feel better, because he evidently claims that he has a disease, a problem that he has, which is alcoholism. Here is him. He actually appeared, not sure what the audio was on or what the show was on, but this is him and his appearance on a talk show and giving his explanation or his pity wine party here, his little pity party about how it was unfair for him and all the other folks on Friends here. Let me go ahead and pull it there. Everybody can listen to it here. But again, you got to think when you listen to this guy's making millions and still making millions.
Is that it's not fair. It's not fair.
It's not fair.
It's not fair.
Not fair.
That I had to go through this disease while the other 5 didn't. They got everything that I got. But I had to fight this thing and still have to fight this thing. So just to end this on a good note, there are people that will help you and get their help. It doesn't go away. It never goes away.
What a sad state to live in. And I hope that people don't take this as a mocking or making fun of or disrespecting people who have an issue with alcoholism, which is actually biblically defined as slavery. You're just enslaved to the sin. Romans chapter 6 tells us that those people who give their bodies, their members of their body over to sinful sources are slaves to them. So I don't in any way want people to think that I'm simply just mocking Matthew Perry here. I am not. What I'm saying is that this issue here is not a disease. He claims that this is unfair. It's unfair that he had to battle this, unfair that he had to go through this while his other friends, pun intended, didn't. Well, the issue here is, Mr. Perry, you struggled through this because of your own natural proclivities, your own natural sins. I guarantee, like you look at somebody like Courtney Cox, she struggled obviously with fear of man, body identity issues, and vanity. And you look at her now, she's still beautiful, but back in the day when she was doing the show, just, a knockout. But now, after years of trying to hold on to this youth, after trying to hold on to this specific look that she had, her face has been distorted through botched plastic surgeries. So you may say, oh, well, it's not fair that I struggled with this, but look at what other people struggled through as well. She struggled with her own sin. She had her own natural proclivities that held her enslaved to whatever her desires were, and I'm sure if you went through all 5 of those, all 6 of the cast, then you would find out that they, in fact, had their own sins. Yours was just a little more public because people could tell, people could hear it in your voice, quite literally. If you listen to him, he sounds his voice is very distorted. I'm not sure if that's because of all the coke that he's snorted through the years. I mean, you spend over $1 million trying to clean yourself up. Just imagine how much you spent trying to get yourself stoned. Right. I mean, you're talking multiple millions of dollars buying coke and speed and crank and all that and alcohol and all that, But
and the sad part
my
about
issue
it is
with the fact that he had that.
Your issue is with the fact that he had what?
And it's not with the fact that he has this problem and that he wants to talk about it. My issue is that he is exploiting it.
That's a great point, because it's not so much, hey, I suffered through this. It's, hey, I suffered through it. It doesn't go away. Now I'm going to make a lot of money through the pity. I'm going to make a lot of money by getting what I want from this. I suffered. It wasn't fair. So I'm just going to have to make money off of this for the rest of my life, which is another very despairing thought to have when he's like, it never goes away. All right. We all, because we're all sinners, we're born with the natural proclivity to sin, right? Our desire to sin, correct, never goes away. But if you find solutions that are in the world, well, I mean, secular solutions that are void of the gospel without Christ, of course, you're not going to have those. You're not going to have long-lasting solutions. You're not going to have any solutions that fix anything because you're seeking man's way to fix those rather than the gospel's way to fix those.
Right.
You know, and that's the kind of conversation I wish somebody would be able to have with Matt Chandler when he's sober is you sought the world's way of alleviating whatever the stress was, whatever the pain was, whatever your issues were that drove you to be inebriated or stoned, right? You followed the world's way. And now you're continuing to follow the world's way by asking them how to get out of that issue. Well, if you really want long-lasting change, if you really want to make sure that this issue doesn't plague you like it has, your answers are going to be spiritual. They're going to be found in the gospel. You can sound off on this and more. BreakDRadio.com. Click on the microphone in the bottom right-hand corner. We'll make you famous. We have coming up here a guest I'm very excited to have on the show with us. We're going to be speaking with Clay Hall. He has been in vocational ministry for more than 20 years and served on the Southern Baptist churches in Western Kentucky for most of that time. He currently pastors Oak Grove Baptist Church in Paducah, Kentucky. He married his high school sweetheart, and together they have 6 children. He's taken that dominion mandate quite seriously. Clay has been engaging in the abortion issue for about 5 years at abortion facility sidewalks, engaging with legislators, challenging his fellow Southern Baptists through the group Southern Baptists for Abolishing Abortion, or SBAA, and rallying Christians in his state through the group Abolish Abortion Kentucky. Welcome to the program with us, Clay. Thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Hey guys, glad to be here.
Fantastic, brother. So just so people know, I mean, like, obviously people are Christians. They oppose abortion. They want to make sure that abortion is curtailed, limited, etc. Those are the words that they'll use. What's the difference between being a pro-life Christian and being an abolitionist, or somebody who wants to seek to abolish abortion?
Yeah, great question. So I grew up in a Southern Baptist church, and I heard Psalm 139. I heard, about John the Baptist leaping in his mother's womb. I heard about all these pro-life things about value, the value of a child. But what was missing from my discipleship when I was growing up in church was the portions of God's word that talked about not showing any partiality, that talked about equal justice for the fatherless, equal justice for the widow. And so what we're trying to do with abolitionism is connect the premises of the pro-life movement, recognize where they have not been faithful to honor all of God's word. They've denied equal justice. They've denied equal protection. They've shown partiality. And we're trying to add that piece of the puzzle back into the discipleship of your average Christian. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
So abolition, when you talk about abolishing abortion, we're talking about the complete elimination of abortion whatsoever, right? We're not talking about just making legislation that kind of, in a way, removes abortion or reduces abortion necessarily, but we're looking at a way to completely to abolish it, make sure it no longer applies or is no longer a viable option for anyone, regardless of the term or regardless of the location of the child.
Yeah, exactly. So if we truly believe that that human beings have value and have worth from the moment of fertilization, from the moment of conception, then let's act like it. And so let's not say, okay, you can kill the child after 6 weeks gestation or after 15 weeks or after 20 weeks. Let's not say that you can kill the child as long as it's a certain person with certain credentials, they can kill the child. Or let's not say that you can kill the child as long as the child's father committed the crime of raping the child's mother, or the list goes on. And all it boils down to is you can decide when, where, how, and by whom a child may be killed. And so that's partiality, and that's wicked, God's word says.
Yeah, and so when it comes to something like abolition, you're talking about equal protection of the law, you're talking about equal protection of morality, and ensuring that those children are afforded the same rights and the same dignity as any other person created in the image of God. So
that's exactly right.
So when we do that, when we look at that, if that is the case, and this is more the controversial aspect of, I hate to get into it so fast here, but when we look at that if a child is murdered, if a child is abducted or murdered, or a person of any age is murdered, we want justice for that person. We want to find the perpetrator. We want to make sure that they are punished to the fullest extent of the law. What does that say when it comes to abolition and the equal application of laws and justice? What does that say about mothers who have abortions and the doctors who perform those, the people in the room, the assistants, et cetera, the legislators that are involved in that? Because you have the primary murderer, you have the secondary involved, the tertiary involved, et cetera. What does that say about each of those individuals involved in the act of aborting a child?
Yeah, exactly. So you said it, you hit the nail on the head at the beginning of your explanation there. We just want the same laws that apply to born people to apply to unborn people. And so so basically any principal actor, any co-conspirator is going to face the same criminal penalties, the same possibilities, the same go through the same channels of determining the level of guilt and the legal repercussions for those actions. That's what abolitionists are calling for. And so we're not saying we want to throw all women who've ever had an abortion in jail. We're just saying that if we believe that a child in the womb is fully human from the moment of fertilization, they deserve the same rights, the same protections. And so there has to be equal justice. If we really believe there is equal value, and if we really do say we want equal protection, as most pro-lifers say, then we have to establish equal justice. So that's what it gets down to. And the laws already have within our laws the capacity, the ability to determine certain levels of guilt and certain levels of involvement. Those things are already written into the homicide code. So all we need to do is take the abortion issue out of the health code and put it into the homicide code where it has always belonged.
And that really is the issue, because we're talking to Clay Hall. He's joining us on the program right now, talking to us about abolition and the equal protection of children that are in the womb. The issue comes down to, like you just said there, the medical establishment wants to try to take on themselves to define what a child is, when the only person that can define what a human is God himself, since he's the creator of that person. You know, it's like looking at a piece of art. You see a piece of art and you're like, well, that means this and that means that. And the artist is standing behind you going, you're a nutbag. That's not what I was drawing at all. It was just my backyard on a winter morning. And you're talking about some esoteric application, how the earth is flat and we landed on the moon, something like that. It's like the person who created the God who created the children, the God who created humanity. That's the one we should go to for the answer of who it was. So the science is attempting to subvert that. Of course, we see that through AI technology. We see that through the technocracy. They're trying to subvert that God role and say that they are the ones who determine what is or isn't life. How do you see, because you're looking at the application of the law, but you just mentioned there with science being the one, or the health being the one determining when life is created or when life is actually a life. How do you attack that portion of this? Because, we can make legislation, we can create laws, we could put amendments on the ballot, which I'll talk to you about in just a moment with the one that just failed last November here in Kentucky. But how do you go after the medical establishment? What's your plan to change the way that science views the creation of a human being?
Yeah, well, I think that people are lying to themselves. I think everybody knows that abortion is murder. And the reason I believe that is because Romans 1 tells us, the early parts of Romans tell us that God's law is written on man's hearts. And so we know that God's law, we know that we've broken God's law, and we're lying to ourselves if we say otherwise. And so all of the medical technology that has come out over the past couple of decades, we've got 4D ultrasounds now. We can do amazing things. We can, there are all kinds of amazing saves where we have been able to save children who are born way premature. So the further the medical technology pushes against the abortion lies, the more it validates what the book of Romans tells us, that we know God's law. And so one of the things that I think needs to happen is we just need to treat people as though they already know the truth. And so we just need to legislate and recognize Galatians says that God's law is a tutor. It is a tutor, and so it is a teacher. And so God designed law to be a teacher. So if you have man's law agreeing with God's law, then what you have is you have the person's heart saying, well, yeah, I guess, that's true, and I can't really argue with that. And so so the medical community has been informed over the past couple of decades through technological advancements in the medical community. And I think the law now needs to catch up with the medical advancements and agree with what God's word says. And once that happens, we will see a society transform the way that we think about the preborn.
And that's just a presuppositional approach as well. You're not trying to convince people that God exists. You're just working from the idea, the foundation that he does, and there's no other explanation. Erica, you had a question?
Exactly.
No, I actually had a question. I don't know if
I just
Erica did or not.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we got some serious lag time here. Sorry.
It's just there's just a supposition I'm looking at for ectopic pregnancies where you know that neither child mother will survive.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's one that we get a lot. And we have to realize that less than 2% of all pregnancies are ectopic pregnancies. We also have to recognize a couple of other things. Number one, that's a triage situation. So if you have two patients, which the doctor should treat the issue as two patients, what you're going to do is you're going to watch, you're going to wait, you're going to carefully see, okay, is one life in danger here? And if so, I need to do what I can to save both lives. But if that's not possible, if it's only possible to save one life, then I'm going to save that one life. And so with the parent's permission, the doctor will choose to save the life that he or she can. And that is not abortion. That's a triage issue. And we have triage rules and laws well established in our culture, and it should not be an issue. The only reason it is an issue is because pro-aborts have made it an issue to try to throw up these objections against just legislation.
Hey, Clay, I've got a question for you. You mentioned earlier about the same kind of rules dealing with the homicide code and stuff like that. How does the opponents of this type of bill justify when we take, say, someone who was hit by a drunk driver, and then they charge them with double homicide or vehicular homicide because the woman was pregnant, versus, how do they skirt that with the abortion, saying, well, okay, so in this case we're considered a homicide, in this case we're considered a medical procedure. Have you heard those arguments?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And what it comes down to is the intention of the mother. That's what it comes down to. So if the mother decides that the child should die, then it's not homicide in the law. It is an abortion, which is different than a homicide. That's what it comes down to. If the mother values the child or not. And what we're saying is the child has value whether the mother values the child or not.
So that's really where personhood comes in, is whether or not that mother wanted to keep that child. If they chose to carry the child to term, then they have made the decision that the child is a person, or that they're going to protect that, quoty fingers, fetus, or that clump of cells inside of them. Whereas if a woman, decides that it's not a human life, it's something she wants to terminate, that's the determining factor, unfortunately, where that comes from. We're talking to Clay Hall, pastor of Oak Grove Baptist Church in Paducah, Kentucky, right next to Bryan, or close to Bryan at least.
Pretty darn close.
A town of like 7 people, so they're probably neighbors down there. But we have some really good questions here, of course, obviously from Erica. She was talking about those possible medical issues that people have, and I really appreciate your question there, Clay, or your answer, because it's not an attempt in that position whenever there's an ectopic pregnancy, or whenever there's a mother needs a surgery, or there's something that has to happen, emergency treatment. You go in with the expectation to save both lives. But, you know, if you're doing the operation or surgery and somebody dies on the table, that's an unfortunate circumstance. You were not intending to take life. You were not intending to harm life. You were intending to cut someone open and help life. Whereas you go into an abortion, an abortuary, you're actually there with the intent of murdering a child. So what is the relationship right now with the, and feel free at any time, by the way, Bryan and Erica, to jump in. We can throw questions at Clay. I'm sure he can handle it. But what is the relationship?
There's a
go ahead,
thing. I don't know how bad my lag is still, but there is a thing like, now I don't know what it is in Kentucky. In Indiana, if you're a mother and you're in delivery and there's a choice, they make you choose. They give you paperwork to sign. Either we are going to save you or we're going to save the child. Or they you say, listen, we're just telling you that we can only do one, we're saving you, you have other children, whatever the circumstances are, but they make you choose. That's what they currently do in India. Are they going to be which is,
I'm not
the mental condition of a mom, and that's
right. Yeah. And that's, that seems just, and I'm not familiar with the Indiana medical guidelines. I'm more familiar with Kentucky's, but that seems just. And the weird thing about it is Indiana is a classic case. I'm glad you brought up Indiana. It is a classic case for how the pro-life community has dealt with abolitionism. So Representative Kurt Knisely has brought up for several years now a bill of equal protection and has brought up an abolitionist bill. It's been rejected. John Jacob last year joined him in that, co-signed in that. And all these pro-lifers who say they want to save children are the ones who are shutting it down. I mean, you've got a supermajority in Indiana, and you would think that if people really want to save preborn life, that they would have the ability to do it. If not now, then when? But sadly, they've been called Plinos, pro-life in name only, and they are the ones who are shutting down the abolitionist bills. And that surprises a lot of people to hear, but it is true in state after state after state over the last 10 or 11 years.
Well, and it's because they're afraid to catch the heat from people that say, well, abortion's wrong except for, or abortion's wrong up to this. And I think our society is to the point where our morals are so subjective that we can't even make a stance on, no, that is murder. You're killing a living being.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, of course, we don't know man's hearts. We don't know what the motivations of people's hearts are. It could be the fear of man. It could just be that they want to keep power and control. And as long as you can dangle the pro-life carrot out in front of voters and say, hey, I'm going to fight the pro-aborts, then you're going to continue to get votes and keep power and keep your seat. That's, who knows why, but it has been the track record of pro-life legislators, and not only pro-life legislators, but also pro-life lobbyists. Kentucky Right to Life has been speaking out against abolitionism and against equal protection. They actually killed a bill in Louisiana last year that would have equally protected preborn children. And Kentucky Right to Life and National Right to Life, they co-signed a letter along with the Southern Baptist Convention's ERLC acting president, Brent Leatherwood, and killed that bill in Louisiana. And this is what we're seeing over and over and over is pro-lifers are killing bills of equal protection.
So why is that, Clay? Why do you think that is? I have my opinion, but I want to know you from someone who's more deeply embedded in the abolitionist movement. Why are the pro-life legislators, the so-called pro-life party, why are they killing, ironically, abortion abolitionist legislation in other states and all over?
Well, I think that primarily it is because they have forgotten why God says they are there. God says in Romans 13 that they are his deacon, they are his servant, right? Peter says that they are to punish the bad, and they are to reward the good, and they are to cause people to fear because they bear the sword. And Scripture says they do not bear the sword in vain. And so they have forgotten what God says about their role as legislators, and they have bought into this idea that we need to wait until the people are ready for this. The people are not ready. The culture is not changed enough. The culture will never change enough. We've had abortion for thousands of years. I mean, abortion is as old as Egypt. I mean, you don't have to look very hard to find that out.
And it's also ironic that they would say something like that, because you don't hear them saying, when you talk about the transgender or the LGBTQ movement, anything like that, when there's assaults or additional, like we've seen an increase, they say, in Asian crime and Asian hate crimes. There's no definition or no consideration of culture when it comes to stopping hate crimes or hate speech against LGBTQ Asians or people of, minority colors. But all of a sudden there is this consideration of culture not being ready to accept not murdering a human life, which is odd, because we've had laws in the books, as you were talking about previously, that hold people accountable. They hold murderers accountable. They hold those who take life premeditatedly accountable. But now all of a sudden the culture is not ready to uphold the standard moral laws that we've had since the inception of this country, really since the inception of God's creation.
Well, Aaron, and it goes back to something else that Clay was talking about a second ago. When you start talking about the fact that, that they are picking and choosing how they're how they're putting this down, and how they're saying, well, it's abortion over here, but it's considered, homicide over here. Everything is so crazy. I mean, we take a look at where we're at today. And when he brought up the Romans chapter 13 comment, we've talked about that multiple times, about, the purpose of government and things like that. And one more thing that you said, Clay, is you talked about holding that carrot out there. That's not the only that's not really the only subject that our government holds the carrot out. I mean, you take a look at what the Kentucky governors have been doing for the last 20 years about the legalized marijuana. I mean, that's something that they've been dangling out there in front of their constituents forever. And finally, the current governor finally had the guts to put in an executive order. Of course, it's going to be struck down, because they always are. But, that's what's going to happen.
That's right. Clay, can you stay with us during this break?
Absolutely.
Awesome. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back with us. Don't forget, everybody, you can actually be a part of the show by heading over to breakdradio.com, click on the microphone in the bottom right-hand corner. We'll play you and make you famous. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we will stay on. Welcome to the top. All right, we got some commercials to play here, folks, and then we can adjust the volume and talk, but we'll be back here momentarily.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, the CEO of MyPillow. Cancel culture has not only affected myself and MyPillow, but millions of you out there. My employees and I want to personally thank each and every one of you for all of your support. At MyPillow, we not only have pillows, but we have hundreds of products, including my new slippers, bathrobes, sleepwear, and my new beds. We're offering the best gifts ever for the best prices ever. For example, we have this exclusive offer on the standard size MyPillows, regularly $69.98, now only $19.98 with your promo code. We also have the queen size MyPillows, regularly $79.98, now only $24.98 with your promo code. And we have the king size, regularly $89.98, now only $29.98 with your promo code. So go to mypillow.com now and use the promo code on your screen, or call the 1-800 number below to receive this exclusive offer. Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, the CEO of MyPillow. Cancel culture has not only affected myself and MyPillow, but also millions of you out there. Well, my employees and I want to personally thank each and every one of you for all your support, and we want to pass the savings directly on to you. At MyPillow, we have hundreds of products, including my new slippers, bathrobes, sleepwear, and my new beds. We are offering the best gifts ever for the best prices ever. For example, you get my new towels with proprietary technology, which makes them not only soft, but absorbent. Towels that work. What a concept. They're made with USA cotton and they come in a variety of awesome colors. My 6-piece towel set is regularly $109.99, now just $39.99 with your promo code. So go to mypillow.com now and use the promo code on your screen or call the 1-800 number below to receive this exclusive offer. Thank you and God bless.
Welcome back to the Breakdown, everybody. Thanks for staying with us during the break as we continue on today. We're going to be talking more to Clay Hall as we are discussing abolition of abortion. If you saw during the break there, if you were watching on YouTube or Facebook, wherever we are still allowed to be on the video streaming platforms, if you want to learn more about the J6 protesters that are being held against their will and being held in a gulag in horrible conditions, there are places that you can go to do that. During the break, we had a couple of those. If you want to learn more about them and get a complete list of all the J6 political prisoners, simply head on over to the Real J6, therealj6.com. And if you want to write to them, you can go to the Patriot Mail Project or the Patriot Freedom Project. Those are great places to donate money as well. And then all of the latest news about those who are being held against their will as political prisoners from the false insurrection that happened on January 6th, 2021.
Wait, Aaron. It was July 6th, according to Biden. Did you hear?
J6patriots.com. I believe that's the website. I'm sorry, here in just a second. J6patriotnews.com. J6 Patriot News. And you can also contribute to the defense fund for the J6ers at the January 6th Legal Defense Fund. There are so many places you can go. Don't forget that right now there are those who are languishing in prison, in jail. They are waiting for their trial. They are waiting for their charges. You would think that sedition and insurrectionist charges against violent armed protesters are somehow going to be are going to have an easy case made against them. But right now, as we still are there, as we are still awaiting them to be charged with something, they are away from their families. They're missing holidays. They're missing church. They're missing the opportunity to be involved in their community. They're not able to raise their children. We're talking about men and women as well. So please keep them in mind. We're going to hopefully have some time to talk about that today. But going forward, this is going to be the focus of the show, to continue to bring to our attention. If we talk about those being created in the image of God, we're talking about equal protection of the law. We're talking about ensuring that children are protected in the womb because they are created in the image of God as well. Then we also have to remember those who are being held against their will in horrible conditions, with no charges being applied to them under a lie, a pretentious lie and a false flag event that was perpetrated against our country. You can do that. Again, you can also go to the website, breakdradio.com, sign up for our newsletter. We're going to be sending more information out about that here in 2023 as part of our initiative to change the world. All right, we're going to get back here to Clay Hall. You like that?
That was good. You need a little echo on that laugh, though.
Yeah, and it wasn't, Brian. I wasn't upset that you were making the joke because obviously anytime we make fun of Biden or poke fun of him is fine. With the lag time, it's just today for some reason the internet is not our friend.
Yes,
things were. It's don't apologize. It's okay, buddy.
He made the public statement though. It was hilarious. He was talking about and the insurrection that happened on July 6th, and I'm like, was that like intentional or was that a faux pas or what?
Well, to be honest with you, that's how they view the founding fathers. They view them as domestic terrorists.
They do. That's what I thought was so funny about it.
Their favorite founding father is Jimmy Madison, who tried to get us under a patriarchy, under perpetual families that ruled the country, which we ended up getting in the Bush administration. But anyway, all right, back to abolish abortion here with Clay Hall. So before we went to break, Clay, we were talking about that. Now, obviously, we're all Christians. We understand the Romans chapter 1, the effect of our inability here because we're given over to sin. We understand Romans chapter 6, Romans chapter 7, etc. My question to you is this. Here we live in Kentucky, which is typically a red state, and we all know that it's kind of an odd state. General elections, we typically go right. And in our state elections, we typically go left. And we have the Electoral College to be very grateful for something like that. But what do you make of the abortion amendment that was introduced in November that was supposed to abolish abortion here, make an amendment to our Constitution, Kentucky State Constitution, that would remove the right or protection that is perceived in the Constitution? What do you make of that, and the fact that it was shot down, that it lost by 100,000 or more votes? Or
yeah, good question. I think first of all, anytime you want to vote on rights that are already ensured in the Constitution, that's probably not a good move. So I'm not really sure what the legislators were thinking when they put that forward. Hey, let's decide whether or not we should allow some people to be killed and devalued and dehumanized. Let's all take a vote on that. That probably wasn't a good move from the outset. But you're right. Kentucky has a long history of feeling strongly both ways. So I knew that it was going to be close. I knew that the vote would be close. And really what it boiled down to was it showed the ignorance of the people. It showed the unwillingness of the church to stand up and educate the people. And it showed the unwillingness of legislators who originally passed the legislation to stand by the legislation that they passed. Right. You should have seen legislators coming out of the woodwork to defend that constitutional amendment. But instead, what you saw was them kind of hiding away. And thousands of dollars were pumped into Kentucky to pump in all kinds of misinformation, the kinds of things that Erica was bringing up about ectopic pregnancies, and even things like miscarriages, and that doctors aren't going to be able to treat women who are experiencing miscarriages. And so many lies thousands of dollars were spent for lies and misinformation to be sent via text message, via YouTube, via all over the television ads, mailers, and the church and legislators, they just fell asleep on the job to educate people. But by and large, I think it never should have been a thing to vote on in the first place, because those rights are already secured for us in both the U.S. Constitution and Kentucky Constitution.
So following that, in that circumstance, what would you do differently? Because if it's already there, there is a perceived right of in the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, which we should know was not written for the states. It was written for the federal government. The Bill of Rights was written as a way to prevent the federal government from encroaching on us. So the question is, if we already know that it is illegal, why don't we just make the law that makes it illegal? Why follow the amendment? I mean, you're saying that it was a bad move. How else do we do that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And actually, I was looking at this last night. Some of the Kentucky laws on the books. If you're familiar with the trigger laws that are held up in Kentucky court right now, the Kentucky Supreme Court, they're trying to decide if it's constitutional or not. Same thing happened in South Carolina a couple of days ago. South Carolina Supreme Court said, nah, you know what? These trigger laws, they're not constitutional, and they struck it down. But even before the trigger laws were passed a year or two ago, we had on the books a trigger law. We had on the books that was passed in the 80s a trigger law that said it didn't use the word Roe v. Wade, but you knew that it was talking about Roe v. Wade. But it said if these things are changed, then all rights of personhood will be restored. And we didn't need another trigger law. We already had one on the books. And but sadly, even trigger laws are unjust, because trigger laws say, if there is an oligarchy, if there is an unelected group of people who are legislating from the bench, and they decide to make law from the bench, with the Roe v. Wade decision or with the Casey decision, if they say that, then we're going to bow down to them as though they are God. The Supreme Court is not God. The Supreme Court has never been God. And when the Supreme Court speaks out against God's word or speaks out against the Constitution, the right of every legislator, and the right of every citizen for that matter, is to defy them, to say, no, we're going to obey God and not man. Yeah, I think I went off on a little rabbit trail.
They don't understand the power of that. They don't even understand the power of even what was talked about with the founding fathers during the formation of the Constitution when they brought up nullification. They don't remember the Kentucky and Virginia documents that discuss the states' rights to nullify whatever the Constitution is saying, because the states are individual countries. They're actually not considered under the auspices of the federal government. They're united, but they're still independent and they're still sovereign countries. So even something that's political like nullification is misunderstood, and then there on top of that, the law of the ability to the law of the lesser magistrates, the ability to deny the magistrates to implement laws that are going to damage or hurt people, which is a biblical responsibility. If you read Romans chapter 13, verses 1-7, if you read that with the lens of understanding where the importance of the magistrates lies and where their responsibility lies, it doesn't lie with the federal government. It doesn't lie with a Masonically perceived constitution that says everybody has the right to have their own religion. It doesn't lie under that. It is under the auspices of God, the Creator, which gives us the rights to say and do what's necessary to create laws that will protect and punish. That's simply what we're looking at there, or reward and punish, as you had mentioned.
Yeah.
But they don't understand that responsibility, Clay.
Yeah.
I mean, you're
exactly
almost
right.
going back to the conversation of can you be pro-abortion and call yourself a Christian, right? Like, we've had that conversation. Like what is beyond my comprehension is, if you're saying you're a Christian, you're willing to die for your faith, for your belief in God, for your belief in Jesus Christ, and yet you can't even stand up for the life that can't stand up for itself. Those two things don't go together. They can't coexist in your brain. How do you possibly rationalize that?
Well, and one of the things that we face as Christians, anyways, is that a lot of times when we take a stance on what God's word says, it is offensive to those that are around us. Some that we really care about. It is offensive to our friends. It can be offensive to even our church. It can be offensive to obviously the world and to unsaved around us. But more importantly, there's times when we take stances on these issues that even it causes division with our church folk. I know that I've talked to pastors and I've talked to friends of mine who, they are Christians, or they claim to be Christians, and they're not real sure how they come down on this total abolition of abortion. And I'm like Clay, I didn't realize being pro-life was not the same as being an abolitionist.
One is the big difference between abolition and pro-life is one seeks to save children and have equal application of law. The other one seeks to line their pockets and have unequal application of riches. I'm not sure if that's an accurate definition in your book there, Clay, but that's what I've seen.
Well, it's not an accurate definition for me because I've never made a dime off either one of the arguments. But
no, it's not you. It's the pro-life legislators. It's the pro-life
agreed. I get
pro-life
you.
lobbyists. The pro-life lobbyists are the same as Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson. Because
Agreed.
if Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson actually brought about an abolition to racism, then they wouldn't be. They would make themselves no longer important. They would be of no value.
Right.
And if you were to do the same with the pro-life movement, where would they get their money? They would no longer be, what's the word I'm looking for that's more insulting than valuable? Relevant. They would no longer be relevant.
I think it's more important. The value is what they see in it, though. The money they can make off of it is what they see. They don't really even care whether they're relevant because they'll just change to another subject and make money off it when that becomes the appropriate one.
Exactly.
So
well, again,
it's really about
marijuana.
value for them.
Going back to the discussion about marijuana again, it's a hot topic when people, when they need to stir up something or when they need to make, some type of profit on it, then it becomes that carrot that they're dangling out there. There's always these topics that are going to be the forefront of. They're those like Clay mentioned a minute ago. Those are those trigger topics that they're just going to be the bait for us to, think about this. Think about in the last election when Biden dangled out the student loan forgiveness. He knew it was unconstitutional. He knew it was going to get struck down. He knew all these things were going to happen, but yet how many millions of people voted for him because he's going to erase my student debt.
Then it's about education. It's about screaming it from the top of your lungs because the only way that you're going to have people that don't fall for it is to teach them that because you can't expect them to go and search it out for themselves.
And that's why podcasts like The Breakdown are so important is because we can't do that from the media as a whole, the mass media. I mean, we get kicked off of YouTube on a regular basis because we talk about the truth about vaccines, right? Or the vax, not vaccines in general, but the vaccination, right? If you talk about anything like this, abortion or anything like that, you become the bane of society. And you can't put that message out there short of standing on the street corner and doing like the old preachers used to do, and in today's society, people think you look foolish for that.
Well, I tell you what, I don't think, Clay, you don't seem like the kind of person that minds being a fool for Christ, do you?
Absolutely not, brother. I've done enough street preaching and ministry outside of abortuaries. I get told that I'm number one with the middle finger up many times when I'm doing that. So, I have a lot of opportunity to die to self.
I tell you, go ahead.
I was going to say, Clay, do you have any testimonies about things, maybe positive reactions from when you've been out in front of abortuaries?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Just where I've been ministering lately is the Carbondale Abortuary, Carbondale, Illinois, because what happened with our trigger laws is it shut down the mills, the murder mills in Kentucky. And so, that has moved abortions to Indianapolis because their trigger laws are not as strong and they're not even interested in enforcing them. Also, it's moved them to Carbondale, Illinois, which is Southern Illinois, and also Bristol, Virginia. And so you're having people travel from Kentucky out to these other states to go get abortions. And so I've been traveling. It's about 60 miles from my house to Carbondale. And, we find women there with Mississippi plates. We find women there with Missouri plates, Kentucky plates, Tennessee plates. They're traveling to get these abortions. And man, they're angry and they're hot. They are not happy that they had to travel that far to go and kill their child. They would rather it be much more convenient for them. And so when they get out of the car, they've already made their mind up. You are my enemy. But it's amazing how we can start up here and we can start at a shouting match and a screaming match, and God moves, and we end up down here and we're like engaging heart to heart, and we're, instead of yelling, we're talking to each other, and we're able to connect, and we have seen some women change their hearts amazing. And leave that place even though they have traveled, and we're able to send them to a pregnancy resource center down the road. And so it's amazing how God works in those circumstances.
Now you're trying to create a pregnancy resource center here in Paducah, aren't you?
Not exactly. What we're hoping to do is better equip churches we're hoping to better equip the churches to meet the needs, because what happens a lot of times is when the church outsources and the church says, you know what, this would be a great ministry, so let's create a parachurch ministry. Well, what happens is that parachurch ministry is no longer grounded in the regular teaching of God's word and the regular accountability of the church. And so that parachurch ministry oftentimes slips into, you might even say, heresy. And you see that happen in a lot of pregnancy resource centers in our day. If you go to their websites, they talk to the women as though they're impartial, as though they're like, you know what, it's your decision. It's completely your decision. If you want to kill your child, that's a decision you can make. If you want to save your child, that's a decision you can make too, and we'll help you with that. And man, I tell you what, it's wicked. Proverbs 17:15 says, he who justifies the wicked and he who condemns the righteous are both alike an abomination to God. And so we see the lies of the pro-life movement trickle down from the pro-life lobbyists, pro-life legislators, all the way down to the pregnancy resource centers, all the way down to the church.
Talking to Clay Hall here, pastor of Oak Grove Baptist Church in Paducah, Kentucky. So we've only got a few minutes left in this segment. Clay, tell us, what is the way forward right now? Kentucky can kind of be a blueprint for other states. I know Oklahoma is having some success, but you mentioned a moment ago trying to have people vote on a law or an amendment that already says that murder, the assumption or the knowledge that murder is illegal. We're voting on that. What are your opinions on what is your action, your suggestions on how we move forward with abolition in Kentucky?
Yeah, so I think it should be the same. I think we should play one note, one song, and play it over and over and over and over, and until we finally get it. We don't need to figure out a back door. We don't need to find a new strategy. We need to just keep there is a political theory called the steel ball theory, and that is where the truth is a steel ball, and everybody out there is a marble on a sheet. And so you've got a sheet stretched out, and if you drop the steel ball in the middle of that sheet, what's going to happen with those marbles? Well, they're going to gravitate towards the truth. And so what we need to do is we need to pound and pound and pound the truth until people gravitate towards the truth. But the thing is, the steel ball theory, I believe, is accurate, and I believe it works. But here's the issue: without repentance, that gravitating towards the truth will only be temporary. And so it is incredibly important for the abolitionist movement to remain a Christian movement. Because as we are calling for the equal application of the laws and for equal protection and equal justice, we must also call for repentance and for people to honor God. And we saw in Kentucky the opposite of this, because we had a constitutional amendment in Kentucky in the 90s that said marriage is between one man and one woman. And that's what marriage is in Kentucky. That was in our Constitution.
Yep.
Well, what happened when the Supreme Court justices reached their Obergefell decision? Well, the Kentucky legislators just said, well, what are you going to do? I mean, what can we do? It was in our Constitution. They should have defied the federal court. They should have said, you do not make law in Kentucky. And so it was left to one woman, Kim Davis, bless her heart, the county clerk,
remember that,
who wouldn't sign the marriage licenses. And this poor woman was the only one who took a stand. And so that's what you have when you have people gravitating to the truth without repentance, without a desire to honor God. So abolitionism must remain faithful, not just to call for equal protection, but also to say why, because we want to honor God.
And that's very important. I'm glad you say that, because one of the charges lobbied against the abolitionist movement, Clay, is that abolitionists believe that the abolition of abortion is more important than the gospel. And what you just said there was just blew that out of the water. we can go out and we can unite with people of different faiths for a political reason or a secular reason, and that's to abolish abortion. But the goal, the purpose of why is part of the grander scheme. We glorify God by honoring him and protecting human life, protecting and ensuring that it flourishes and taking hold of the dominion mandate like we're supposed to. That's the purpose. That's the reason and the driving force behind abortion. The love your neighbor, loving your neighbor as yourself. Jesus Christ told us that, we're supposed to protect the little ones. We're supposed to protect life. So by doing those are gospel principles. You can't be devoid of the gospel.
Exactly.
And when you're carrying out gospel principles on that. We had a couple of comments here in the chat room. I really appreciate it over at YouTube on the moments that we have here left, probably on YouTube and in this particular segment with Clay Hall. Timmy the Pilot says, this has always been a fight between good and evil. If individuals can't understand that, that's a shame. God is about love. Evil is about hate. We are being put into a place to pick one side or another. He continues, I say even people that aren't believers can understand that premise, love versus hate and vice versa. We see it right in front of our faces on a daily basis. Now, if I'm going to be a theological Nazi, a theo-Nazi here, I'll say that premise is a presupposition, because you can't have love or hate in an atheistic or non-biblical worldview, because where do you get your definition of love and hate? But he also continues here, what's really a shame is people put more priority in their pets than human life. Ask them if they want to kill their puppies or kittens before they are born, and well, things will happen. Things will hit the fan is what he's saying there. So any comment to that, Clay? Oh,
Man, I think you're exactly right. It is definitely a presupposition, and abolitionism is a presuppositional argument. And
that's right, brother. Hey, I hate to cut you off, but that's the end of us on this. Clay Hall, thanks for joining us. We hope to have you on again. Stay tuned here, folks, as we continue the show.
Bye, Clay.
See you guys.
Fighting for your right to be wrong. Mojo 50.
Supply chain disruptions, shortages, panic buying. Unfortunately, they've all become facts of life in 2021. The good news is you have preparewithmojo50.com as a hedge against all the craziness. At preparewithmojo50.com, not only will you find emergency food supplies.
Remember when that seemed like a fringe conspiracy theory thing to do?
Not so much anymore, right? Not only will you find the emergency food supply, but also water filtration, air filtration, all sorts of other tools that you can use in the event of an unforeseen situation or emergency, which with every day that goes by seems more and more likely. Better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Preparewithmojo50.com. If you want to keep food on the table, if you just want to maintain some sense of normalcy, preparewithmojo50.com is the answer. Preparewithmojo50.com.
Let's be honest. Wheelchairs are heavy, bulky, and ugly. If you carry a wheelchair in your car to take care of a loved one, you know how hard it is getting that clunky, old-style wheelchair in and out of your car. Introducing the Feather Chair Wheelchair. At 13 pounds, it's the world's lightest wheelchair. It folds in seconds and fits neatly in your trunk, backseat, or closet, so you can take it everywhere. And it's only available right here. Order yours today and get a free wheelchair case, a $50 value, yours free. The Feather Chair. The world's lightest wheelchair is just $4.99 with easy payments as low as $16 a month. Sorry, no Medicare or insurance accepted. So call right now to order yours.
800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. That's 800-823-5826.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for staying with us. That was a great interview with Clay Hall. We really appreciate him coming on with us and giving us some of his time there. Because abolition here in Kentucky and abolition around the nation is extremely important, and we want that to be pushed. Several things that we need to get on and be sure that we are doing in this current time, especially this year here, is abolition. We're going to be, as mentioned, we're going to be talking about the J6 protesters as well, which I'd like to try to get to today. We've got still several things. We never seem to get to all the things that we want to. We've got bad theology coming up, plus the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot segment as well that we're going to be discussing. But here, I'd like to jump in real quick. Yesterday, we talked about this a little bit at the beginning of the last segment, but the January 6th false insurrection that's been used as a war against Republicans and against the political right has been waging. It's been the political war against folks has been waging for decades. However, this was one of those moments that was a culminating of all of the anger and vitriol that's been spouted against specifically white Christian males. And they're called white supremacists. We're told that that's probably going to be where the next homegrown terrorist comes from, is from the white supremacy group. And anybody who is a Trump supporter, anybody who is white, is considered a white supremacist. And what we saw happening on January 6th was this exact thing. We saw agent provocateurs within the federal government that had been placed there. We know there was admissions from the FBI that they had moles within the Proud Boys organization and other organizations, and they were there as agent provocateurs. Ray Epps just last week admitted in front of Congress that he orchestrated the J6 false insurrection. So what we see here is a devastatingly angering type of situation where everybody who watched what happened that day saw with their own eyes what was going on, but they had the specific camera angles, they had the specific news stories, and immediately the information from the parrot media was that this was a violent insurrection. This was a violent overthrow. This was an attack on our democracy. This was the worst attack on our democracy since the Revolutionary War. And that terminology was constantly spouted. So now what you have is a narrative speaking against anybody who was there that day. You now have hundreds of people that have been arrested, and they are not being charged. They're being held against their will. They're being held with misdemeanor, if anything, charges. And it's easy for us to see in these circumstances just how horrible and atrocious an attack this was on our freedom.
They're very strategic. I mean, they've been very strategic, even with the arrests that they've made. It may seem random, but they have the people that they're holding the most closed and the one being most abused are the ones who actually what the Capitol Police did. The ones
right,
that have witnesses to what was happening, and they have the video footage. Have all of it. You're not seeing it. You're not getting it, but they have all of that video footage, and it's disgusting what they're doing to these people in there. Some of them were told if you get the vaccine, you can see your family, and then they will be allowed to see their family. And they haven't had type of there's no speedy trial where it's just your basic. I mean, if you have it, bring it out there. And it's nothing. And them are pleading to deals that say that so the time served would have to be 12 years and they give you 10. How is that a plea? I mean, there just is, and the fact that you're even forced to plead is because you feel so desperate.
Hopeless. Yeah, desperate and hopeless.
Insane.
It is. And to add insult to injury, yesterday, two horrible events occurred. First, there were anti-protesters. There were anti-conservative protesters, and there were regular protesters up there on January 6th. But while that was going on, Joe Biden was delivering his remarks on the second anniversary of January 6th. And afterwards, he awarded 12 people, including DC Metro Police, a presidential medal, the President's Civilian Medal, I believe is what it was, one of the highest civilian honors you can receive. What a slap in the face.
It was
after
unbelievable.
Watching video footage. Yeah, I mean, watching video footage of the agents of the DC police and FBI installs and CIA installs and the provocateurs in the crowd, watching them send out flashbangs, watching them shoot out tear gas canisters to provoke the crowd to attack And then on top of that, to trample a woman and allow her to die on the sidewalk. And then for the murder of Ashley Babbitt to happen, which didn't need to occur, they awarded them. They show you who your bosses are.
To occur, and who did they arrest? They also arrested Ashley yesterday, who has been outside protesting every day to day one. On the anniversary, awarded the people who likely killed her daughter on national television, and no one is being charged with it or paying the price for it. They arrested her. How vile and depraved who's the guy that goes and arrests her? Why is the person saying, I'm not doing this?
Oh, there's a video.
Well, according to Joe Biden, he's a hero.
Yeah, there are videos of it, and those guys those cops that arrested them, they are tools for sure. But yeah, when all of this happened, the media, the left, and even some Republicans, including I believe McCarthy himself, we're talking about how this was an attack on the seat of democracy. This is where the democratic process happens. This is where the nation is run. And you saw before the January 6th protests, they had barbed wire fence surrounding the Capitol area, barbed wire everywhere, because they were showing you just how important they thought they were. They were saying, we are more important than you plebes. This is where the country happens. This is where the guidance of the country occurs. And then for them to 2 years later award those who were involved in provoking this, and to award those that were involved in the death of bystanders. The only people that died on the day were civilian protesters.
Right.
And they awarded the group that had something to do with this. They show you that they and their police force are more important than you little turds out there. And that's exactly the way they think about us too.
You know, Aaron, and the thing is that our country was founded on rebellion. Our country was founded on a revolution against tyranny. And now you take a look at the very hint of someone disagreeing with the quote unquote seat of democracy is considered, an unforgivable offense. I mean, we fought against, but we fought against, a tyrannical government who did not have, representation, but yet wanted to tax us. So was taxation without representation or whatever. That was just one of like 26 different offenses that we stood up against. And you can't even tell them, hey, your voting process sucks, because that's offensive. Our government has become so woke.
You can't tell them anything.
You can't tell them anything at all. You can't tell them anything at all. And as soon as you make any accusation whatsoever, you're now the enemy. And these guys at the J6ers, these guys, they have the full force of the federal government sitting on their head. They are making decisions, and they are kowtowing to stuff that they have no choice to do, or they're just not going to be able to live.
And let's pull this up here real quick. This is the video of Ashley Babbitt's mom being arrested. Now, this will show you just what they were doing. What they were reporting to arrest her for was jaywalking, and this is afterwards. So this is only 19 seconds. Yeah, jaywalking. She wasn't. And but there's ironic things here, as you can see in the video here. Ironically, police are blocking traffic trying to arrest her and yelling at other protesters, telling them to get back because they're impeding and blocking traffic. You can't get any more ironic, any more stupid than the law themselves telling us to stop breaking the law when they're breaking the law.
When they're breaking the law, exactly. Yeah.
Since when do you get arrested for jaywalking? It's a ticket. You get a ticket.
Since you're
actually who she was.
She would not cross to the other side of the street. There was barricaded block where they were walking. So they crossed the street and they were told to cross to the other side. And one of the police officers actually touched her. There's a video of that too. Actually pushed her pushed her away. And a guy was like, that was inappropriate. That was unnecessary. And then they still arrested her because of this. Here you go. But this is funny what she says. It kind of gives you that same, kind of in your face feeling here. Here you go.
Mickey, anything you want to say? Anything you want to say?
Capitol police suck ass.
He said the Capitol Police.
I love you, Mickey.
Oh my God.
No. You got my shit. Don't come over here.
She's trying to keep other people away from it because she knows.
Why? What happened?
We're crossing the street.
Jaywalking.
They blocked off our sidewalk, but I didn't get out of the street. So this motherfucker laid
Oh.
hands on me.
Yeah, he did lay hands on her, and I did get that on camera.
You guys ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Kill her daughter and then her sweet.
Corrupt people.
So isn't that a check? Wait. In the street, jaywalking is not a
Bitch!
arrestable offense. Jaywalking.
Ashley Babbitt!
Chanting that, and then one of the guys, it was really annoying because one of the guys starts chanting off tune or off beat there. So, but anyway, they arrest her and they put her in jail because Ashley Babbitt's mom, 2 years from the day where she was murdered in cold blood for simply for something that she shouldn't even have been arrested for, to be honest with you. Something that brought on so much vitriol and hate towards a person. And that was the situation that happened yesterday. So, of course, as we mentioned previously, you can email us and or you can join the email list over breakdradio.com and get more information on the J6 political prisoners being held in the facilities around the country, plus how to write to them, how to be a part of the learning more about them, praying for them especially. Breakdradio.com is the website. You can sound off on this or other things. We actually have one of those wonderful sound offs. So we are going to play that for us right now. Let's see what we can do with this sound off here. Let's go. Make sure that this person actually knows how to do a sound off. That'd be great. Here we go.
Hey guys, this is Brad Henson. Hey Brian, how you doing, man? I wanted to tell you a little history about the pay it forward stuff you were talking about. Back in the early 2000s, maybe even late 90s, there was a Christian pastor in Cincinnati named Steve Sjogren. Steve is, I think, in the Northwest now. He's a writer and a pastor and just a mentor to a lot of younger guys like me. He taught us something that he called servant evangelism. So basically, just imagine church folks taking practical ways to serve their community as a way to share the gospel, or at least administrate or show off what it means to love people like Jesus loved them. So in the idea of washing feet, that kind of thing. So we would give bottles of water away on a hot day. We would go into actually gas stations and ask if we could wash their bathrooms, and they would look at us like we were crazy. And then we got to tell them about Jesus. And one of the number one things we did was we would tell our people to pay for some of or all of the money for the drive-in car behind them when they go to the drive-in. And the way that would work is they'd have this like track or card in their pocket that had just a statement like, we did this because we love Jesus and we know he loves you, or as a practical way to show you the love of Jesus, something like that. And then it just had the church's name and website on it. That was really all that there was. And so you would tell the person at McDonald's, hey, I want to put $10 toward the car behind me, which would flip them out, and they would ask why, and you'd tell them. And then you'd give them the card and say, will you give it to the people behind us? And they would say, sure. And then they would give it to the person in the car behind you. And believe it or not, we saw all kinds of positive gospel forward movement from doing that for, 7-8 years in a row. Now, I had never heard of restaurants kind of taking over the idea and starting to do it, and leave the Jesus part out. But
all right, that was the limit. So sorry about that. Was it Benson or Jensen?
Brad Henson.
Brad Henson.
H-E.
Sorry about that. But yeah, we have maybe I should extend that limit, or maybe I should reduce it. But that's a 2-minute limit on those sound offs over there. But somebody in there that has a DR in front of their name, they're going to take the time. They appreciate you calling and leaving that. I have no problem with that. I remember there was a church up in Cincinnati, here locally as well, that did that. That would hand out bottles of water. The biggest concern I have, the only concern I would log with friendship evangelism or service evangelism, is you can't leave out the evangelism part. you're doing something, and you have to let people know the gospel, not just because I love you and Jesus loves you. You have to let them know the gospel. What is the gospel? Confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus, believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, and you will be saved. That's, but to be honest with you, doing those things is pretty awesome because it gets people involved. It gets people thinking about others. We just cannot leave that devoid of the gospel at all.
I agree 100%. And I was part of, not part of that church, but I was around when that church was doing that down in downtown Cincinnati. And unfortunately, they didn't take it to that next level. They had a little blurb on their bottle of water, but like you said, they didn't go deeper into the actual evangelism part of it.
Yeah. All right, folks. That was the sound off. You can leave one as well. We'll make you famous. BreakDRadio.com. Click on the mic in the bottom right-hand corner, and we will do that for you. All right, now it's time for one of the greatest parts of the show. Well, I personally think. Here we go.
You're teaching some bad theology. Your bad theology's annoying me. Oh, you're teaching some bad theology. Repentance is the only cure that you need.
That's right, folks. It is the time for the bad theology segment of the breakdown here this morning, where we scour the internet and find those really, really. Oh man, did Bryan and I find some really, really.
Oh, by the way, Aaron, did you get the message from the record company? They're wanting to sign that. They want you to do that song.
Let's do it, baby. Let's do it.
No, they don't. No, they don't. Don't, Bryan. Don't tell him that.
He'll get the big head. Yeah, never mind. He's already got the big head. Never mind.
So we've got two of these we want to do. Run through them fairly quickly today because they're easy to refute. We got to get to our Whiskey Tango Foxtrot segment. Here's this one right here from the late Freddie K. Price. Oh boy, yeah, this is a fun one here. Let's do it.
Oh, now I'm going to say something. I'm going to just load it out there. Just take it and receive it and put it in your spirit and let your spirit handle it from there on.
Well, hold on just a second.
Every
this is,
believer
going wonky on me.
Could and should be a millionaire.
All right, here we go. Let's start that.
Now I'm going to say something. I'm going to just load it out there. Just take it and receive it and put it in your spirit and let your spirit handle it from there on. Every believer could and should be a millionaire. Just let your spirit just handle it. Don't try to fight it. Don't try to fight it. I got more knowledge in this area than you do.
Oh my gosh, I hate when people do that stuff. Don't try to use your brain. Don't try to think about it. I'm smarter than you. I've got more knowledge in this area, and don't fight it. Listen, buddy, I'm not going to fight being a millionaire. You want to make me a millionaire? This guy's a multimillionaire. These guys like Joel Osteen, Creflo Dollar, Rod Parsley, TD Jakes, Jesse Duplantis, Jimmy Swaggart, all these guys, they're millionaires. If you want to make multiple people millionaires, you can do so. You can start giving back some of that money that has been given to you from all these duped parishioners for so long. Why don't you do that, friend? Now, the reason you're not going to do that, friend, is because you're pretty daggone selfish, aren't you? And you don't want to give up your money because that's what makes you who you are. And then he wants everybody to tithe that as well so that he can continue his lavish lifestyle. The gospel does not promise anybody money. It doesn't promise anybody riches. What it does promise you is that those who live godly in Christ Jesus shall suffer persecution. That is quite apparent throughout the entire Gospels. So this guy.
Did you notice the guy when they slowed the video down? The guy was taking his offering behind him.
Yeah, well, they do that. They have like those baskets.
Yeah.
For people, they just walk up and they just like leave their money and stuff. On the stairs or on the steps of the so-called altar up there. They do that as well. So no.
You there, Aaron, or did we lose you, buddy? It looks like you. Okay, so Aaron froze.
Bad
up.
theology. Not every Christian is meant to be a millionaire. Am I here? Am I back? Am I back here?
I can't tell if you're back or not.
Sound is.
Okay, my sound is. All right. So that is so the theology that teaches that people are supposed to be rich is a false theology. And it is a theology because it tells us that regardless of what you are doing in your life, if you're a Christian, you're supposed to be a millionaire.
Yeah, that's not only false, it's preposterous that you would think that that's the way that works. Yeah. Again,
give
what
money,
do
and God will give you more back. It doesn't work that way. No, it doesn't work that
And
way at all.
I have a hard time faulting the ones taking advantage of the idiocy or of the ignorant. There's the ignorant, and they have to be educated.
That's the biggest thing. Like it comes down to this education that we have to make sure that people understand why they're being. They have to be taught why the information or why the Gospels teach what the Gospels teach. And unfortunately, people don't possess that knowledge because pastors are too busy teaching them that they have to get their money, to teach them money, or they have to get and draw from them their paycheck each week. Okay, so here we go. Here's the other bad theology with this one here. This is going to get up a lot of people's nose. I know it's probably going to drive a lot of people crazy because it did me as well. So just what you're looking at right now, I believe if you're watching this video, what you're looking at is a female who is somehow transitioned evidently to be a male. And they were asked the question, where's your proof that Jesus is non-binary? Also, if Jesus was non-binary, why did he create male and female only? Here is this answer.
This is an easy one. If you espouse to the idea that Jesus was born of a virgin birth, then Jesus could not have had male chromosomes. Therefore, Jesus had only female chromosomes and presented as masculine, so Jesus was non-binary. And in terms of male and female, and the Hebrew, the word that was used for "and" describes a spectrum. Male and female and everything in between. Man and woman is a biological concept. Science currently identifies 13 combinations and permutations of XY chromosomes. Masculine and feminine is a sociological
Masculine and feminine is a sociological construct, is what it says here.
construct that is dependent upon the society with which you are talking about.
All right, that's that. There you go.
This is an easy one. If you espouse to the idea that Jesus was born of a virgin birth, then Jesus could not have had male chromosomes.
Hold on just a second.
Therefore, Jesus had only female.
Can y'all hear me okay? Am I
and
coming through?
presented as masculine.
Yeah.
You're coming
So,
through. You don't have a camera right
Jesus
now.
was non-binary.
Okay, no worry. I'm trying
in
to fix
terms of
that.
male
but,
and female,
I just want to make sure
and the
everybody can hear me
Hebrew,
because
the
it is
word
radio,
that was
so
used for
right
"and"
but anyway,
describes a
yeah.
spectrum.
So now we talked about this
Male
last week, as a
and
matter of
female.
fact, or the week before, with the incarnation. The fact that Jesus, he's saying that Jesus has no Y chromosomes because he doesn't have a father, which of course is false. It is. We see that Jesus Christ was 100% God, 100% man. That's exactly why he was able to die for our sins. If he wasn't, then the sins of the world cannot be paid for. And cannot be covered under the blood of Jesus Christ, because Christ had to be a human to stand in for us. So this is where we see the idiocy of science. And Erica, you could probably speak more towards this because you're actually educated. This is this is where we see the failure of biology and the failure of what's so-called science.
I mean, it's complete ridiculousness. All that is taking the absence of you're taking a theory, and like Bryan likes to do, you're extrapolating it out and you're making assumptions that are not based on fact. Okay, so you're not going to be you can't just redefine how a sperm and an egg form life. You can't just redefine happens to make your sickness the norm or the reality. You don't get to change fact just to play into your own delusions.
That is where we have to understand the difference, is that we are playing into the belief that these are somehow legitimate concerns about their lives, or legitimate concerns about their body, legitimate concerns saying that they're actually what they're not. It's mental illness is what it is. And of course, it's very unfortunate. Not only is that mental illness affecting them, but it's also affecting their theology as well. So that was bad theology for this week. You can head on over to breakdradio.com, click on the mic in the bottom right-hand corner and sound off. Now we're going to run through the other extremely important segment of the program here.
Whiskey Tango Foxtrot.
All right, this is the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot segment where we scour the internet and find all those stories that make you say, what the Foxtrot? Today is no different here, folks. We might only have the ability to get one of these out, and honestly, it is absolutely appalling. This is from the American Thinker last week. Disturbed to the nth degree, men are now inserting frozen tomato paste cubes for a mock fem cycle. And Olivia Murray over at the American Thinker starts her essay out by saying, at this point, can we please admit that the transgender ideations are a debilitating mental health crisis? We've finally seen this perversion to its illogical ending here, is what she's saying. Right now, this material, this is what's happening on boards that exist out in the world today online, where girls, G-U-R-L-S, men who want to become women, exist. Here's what it says. Frozen V8 popsicles are inserted into the rectum of men. So they buy V8, they freeze it into a popsicle-like thing, and then they insert it into their rectum so that they can then melt and give them the sensation or for them to play, period. One guy takes several Corectal women's laxatives at the start of his quoty fingers period, which always leads to cramps. You don't know exactly when they'll hit. They may hit you in the middle of the night. And him having to get up and run to the bathroom, sometimes having diarrhea in his pants or his pad, is the same for him as having an issue of blood or having bleeding during his period.
It's not the same, but he
that's what I'm saying. It's the same for him. I'm not saying it is the same.
This is absolute complete insanity. You are talking. Can I say a word?
Say whatever.
I mean,
need to,
not that bad, but not.
Yeah.
God, you're free. You're buying tomato juice, which is super high in acid content. Just by the way, you're shoving up your ass. So they put on a period, and when you're taking laxative, which by the way, those don't cause you to be constipated. The opposite. Now you're wearing a pad. You're trying to simulate something that most women are like, oh my God, I don't have to do this anymore. And you want to make yourself, you're having it. It's not the same. It's never going to be the same. There's no lining except for maybe the lining of your colon. It's now going to be pro-anus the second that you get over what you have now done to yourself.
And by the way, don't they understand
it's just the most preposterous thing you've ever heard?
Yeah. I mean, and as Bryan was saying,
listen,
it's a different
there's no egg. You know, you're not.
Well, don't tell him that, because the next thing you do is
let's be honest.
Shove them up there.
I'm going to have to admit though, the frozen V8 does sound pretty tasty as long as it's not shoved up an orifice. I mean, seriously, who came up with that idea? Who thought about that idea? Seriously.
That is Bryan. I don't know who thought about the idea. I don't know
who
who
do
thought
you
about
think?
that question or not here. It's from a demented mind. That's who thinks about this. It is from a demented mind. Oh, we have a comment here. Larry said.
What is the?
Larry says Christians make abnormal sexuality taboo. Sorry, what was that, Erica? Larry comments here, Christians make abnormal sexuality taboo. That taboo makes these ideas interesting to rebellious young minds. So we're not supposed to speak out against something if it's wrong because it's going to make it intriguing or somehow compelling to a young religious mind. Sorry, Larry, we stand up for principles. We stand up for values because those principles and values are necessary and because they are right. All right, folks, that's the show for today. Thank you all so very much for staying with us. Don't forget to share the show with everybody you can. Join us next time. Until then, make it out for your value. All right, for those that are still with us on the stream over there, we got a few people hanging out with us. Let me see here. Larry is also talking over here on the comments as well. Wow. What a show. Man, I've just been having technical problems all day, and then a camera drops on me. Larry says here, do you not ever ignore a kid to not give them a negative attention? Yeah, Larry, that's what I'm going to do. If I see a kid, snorting coke off a hooker's belly, I'm just going to ignore him because I don't want him to continue to do it. You're talking about a child throwing a fit and a child having a temper tantrum. Yeah, I mean, like, oh, you're shoving V8 up your rectum. Oh, that's okay. That's fine. Continue to do that. I'm not going to give you negative attention.
I mean, seriously, yeah. Oh, please.
I mean,
is that what you're going to say when you? Is that what you're going to say when you have to go to the ER because your child has like torn their rectum and they need surgery? No, I didn't really want to give him negative attention. So yeah.
No, Larry's not going to give him negative attention. He's going to be like, "Oh, you need surgery? I'm not going to give you that negative attention."
Oh, I'm sorry. You have a V8 ice shard up your backside. Well, you just bleed out. Then it's okay.
Yeah, because we're not sure if it's blood or if it's V8. We're not quite sure.
Oh
my God. Yeah. Well, you can imagine that the popsicle probably doesn't melt evenly.
I have to exit
Did you
today
say ice
because
shard
I'm
or ice shard?
Ice shard. It was a play on words.
All right, Erica. What were you saying, Erica? Because we've had connection issues all day. We keep.
I could take off today. I
Erica,
know. I can't hang out today. I got to take off.
No worries. Thanks for everything.
But I will have I'll have a better connection next time. I'll be back in Indy. Anna.
Awesome. Well, tell your mom we said thank you for letting you use her
all right, gentlemen.
house there. Y'all have a great one.
Her Wi-Fi.
Be good, Erica. Her Wi-Fi, yeah. Her South Florida home.
All right, so Larry continues here.
He can't even get the acronym right. He forgot the Q.
Tell a kid what not to do and they'll do it. So you're not supposed to do anything. See but this logic, following your conclusions to their logical end, if you don't tell your kid not to do something, or you tell your kid not to do something, you're just going to make them do it. So you don't encourage them to not walk out in the street and not get run over by a car. You don't tell them not to snort the chemicals under your sink because it'll blow their brain up. You don't encourage them not to get a gun and point it at their head when it's loaded. You don't encourage them not to play Russian roulette. But anything, all of that, Larry. Yeah, you encourage them to not do something. So they'll do it. Yeah. What you should do, if it is what you're saying, just use reverse psychology. Tell them, yeah, go out doing crack and blow and smack, all of that stuff. That's fine. Just go ahead and go do that. That's okay. Right. If we're going to follow your logic there, Larry, fundamentalist Christians, he says here, feed their opponents. You know what? You're absolutely right. I'm going to give you some negative attention here, Larry. So all right, everybody, thanks for paying attention today. Thanks for joining us on the show. Don't forget to share the show, of course, and share the podcast with people. Well, actually the radio show, it's not a podcast, it's a radio show, and it is podcasted afterwards. So be sure to share that with everybody that you know. I really do appreciate it. And I'm going to go ahead and end this today because I also have some stuff to do. So we will see you soon. Have a